Good afternoon and welcome to the Unit 5 System of Equations review. In this unit we are going to look to see how to use a graph to find the intersection point, determine how many solutions there are based on the information we are given, use substitution to find the solution, as well as use matrices on our calculator to find the solution. When we're going to start off, we are going to look at how to find the intersection point of a system of equations. So as long as I have them both in y equals mx plus b form, it makes it very easy for me to graph. So I'm going to graph my first line in the red marker, y equals 2/3 x minus 1. Trying as best as I can to create the straight line through my dots. And then I am going to graph the second equation, y equals negative x plus 4 with the green marker. Now you will notice that at this dot right here, they intersect. That is the solution to my equation. That means if I take that point and that point of 3, 1, and plug it into both of these equations, they should work out. We are going to check it. 1 is equal to 2/3 times 3 minus 1. 1 is equal to 2 minus 1. 1 is equal to 1. That checks out. But for the system to work, we need to make sure both of them are correct. So I'm going to have 1 is equal to negative 3 plus 4. And 1 is equal to 1, and it also checks itself out. Therefore, I know the point 3, 1 is the solution to this graph. If I look at the second graph here, I have x plus 3y is equal to negative 15 and y equals negative 5. If I focus on that first equation, it is not in y equals mx plus b form. So I am going to go ahead and convert it to y equals mx plus b form. And the way that I am going to do that is I'm going to isolate the y by itself. So I'll have 3y is equal to negative x minus 15, and I'm going to divide it all by 3. So my new equation is negative 1/3 x minus 5. And that's a lot easier for me to graph. And I will graph this with the red marker. So I have my negative 5, down 1, run 3. And I will create my line. And the second equation, y equals negative 5, I will graph in the blue marker. This is going to be a horizontal line because of the fact I'm only looking to go through the y-axis. My slope for this is 0. And I will notice that my intersection point is actually on the y-axis. I'm going to have the point 0, negative 5 as my solution. When we plug this into our equations, we will notice it checks itself out. Now, on all these questions, you will not always be given a graph. You will have to solve it by hand. And in order to start out, we can look at the equation and determine how many solutions there are going to be. So the first kind of answer that we receive is where there's one solution. The one solution is where the equation has no pattern. And this is true when I'm looking at all three of the terms within the equation. So if I give the equation 5x plus 4y is equal to 30, and 6x plus 7y is equal to 4. If you notice, there is no distinct pattern where I can take this first equation, multiply or divide it to get the second equation. If I have that pattern that shows up in all three of my terms, this is where an infinite solution is shown. So the equation that I'm going to use, or that I'm going to demonstrate with, is if I have 5x plus 4y is equal to 30, and then I write 15x plus 12y is equal to 90. If you notice from the first equation to the second equation, I multiplied by 3. This is saying it's the exact same line, just written in two different ways. When we have infinite solutions, the graphs or the lines will be right on top of each other. And last but not least, the no solution. There will be a pattern on your x term and y term. This means the constant at the end of the equation will not have a pattern. So for example, I'm going to use my equation 5x plus 4y is equal to 30. And then I'm going to write 10x plus 8y is equal to 9. If you notice on the x and y terms, I multiplied it by 2 to get to my second equation. This is the pattern we are looking for. This means that they are going to have the same slope, but they're going to have a different y-intercept. These lines become parallel, which means that there will be no solution. So we're going to look at a system of equations, and the first way that I'm going to talk about is through substitution. The first thing that we need to do for substitution to work is make sure one of the variables is isolated. So in my example here of y equals 4x plus 2 and y equals x minus 1, I already have one of the variables isolated. So I'm going to choose this second equation, x minus 1, and I am going to substitute it into the y in the first equation. So it will read x minus 1 is equal to 4x plus 2. And now I solve it just as a normal equation. I'm going to subtract x. Negative 1 is equal to 3x plus 2. I'm going to subtract 2. And I'm going to have negative 3 is equal to 3x. Divide by 3. Negative 1 is equal to x. I have my x point here. In order for us to find the y, we are going to take what we know of x and substitute it into one of the equations. So I'm going to choose my second equation, y equals x minus 1. I'm going to substitute in negative 1 minus 1, and y is going to equal negative 2. So my final answer, or my final solution for this system of equations, is going to be negative 1, negative 2. Answer choice B. I'm going to show this through substitution, because if you look at my top equation, y is by itself, and in the bottom equation, my x is by itself. But it's not isolated. There's no coefficients. So the first thing I would have to do is I have to rewrite this second equation to where I'm going to isolate the x. So I'm going to add 2y to both sides. So my new equation, x is equal to 2y minus 5. I have isolated one of my variables. I'm going to substitute 2y minus 5 in for the x in the first equation. So now 4 times 2y minus 5 minus y is equal to negative 6. The way you check that you've done this correctly is look to see if one variable shows up. In this equation, I see y show up on both. That means I'm doing it correctly. So now, using the phrase DCMAM, I start by distributing to get 8y minus 20 minus y is equal to negative 6. I'm going to combine my like terms of my y's to have 7y minus 20 is equal to negative 6. I'm going to add 20 to isolate my variable. I'm going to have 7y is equal to 14. And then the final step that I'm going to do is to just divide by 7. And I'm going to see that y equals 2. Now, in two of the answer choices, I already have y equals 2. So now I just need to find my x variable. And in the question like this, you cannot choose the new equation of x equals 2y minus 5. You have to plug into the original equation. So if I say x minus 2 times 2 is equal to negative 5. I get x minus 4 is equal to negative 5. I'm going to add my 4. And I'm going to see that x equals negative 1. Therefore, my final solution is A. Now, in this equation, I see that both of them are already in standard form. I'm going to show you through the matrices on my calculator. So to set this up, I am choosing all of my coefficients to plug into my calculator in that matrix. The matrix will be a 2x3 box where I, again, take all that coefficients. So 1, -1, 7, 2, 1, and -1. When you go into your calculator, you'll hit the matrix, you'll scroll over to edit the A box, you're going to type this all in, and you are going to make sure you go to your calculator, and you're going to make sure it is RREF. This simplifies the box down. Using my calculator with my matrix and reducing it down to its simplest form, I get 1, 0, 2, 0, 1, -5. In this matrix, my final column here, the 2, -5, is my solution, where my top number is my x, my bottom number is my y, which is answer choice D. Looking at a word problem, we're going to first set this up. Andrea has 37 coins, all nickels and dimes. The value of the 37 coins is $3.10. How many dimes does Andrea have? So to start out, we know she has 37 coins. That describes my first equation of x plus y is going to equal 37. Now we're looking at the value of money. We know nickels are going to be 5 cents, plus the dimes are going to be 10 cents. And that will equal the $3.10 in the end. There are two ways you can do it. You can substitute or you can use the matrix. Make sure you are reading the question itself. It is asking for how many dimes Andrea has. So when we go through this, you are looking at your y. We are saying x represents the nickels and the y represents the dime. So plugging into the matrix, I have found out that I get an answer of 1, 0, 12, 0, 1, 25. And again, we said that our y represents our nickels, therefore the answer of 25 is what I am arriving at. That is all we have for the Unit 5 review. Again, we are looking at system of equations of graphing, where we find the intersection point, the number of solutions by looking at the pattern in the equations, and then using substitution or the matrix to find our final answer. When we go through the matrix method, you need to make sure that both are in standard form. If one is already in y equals mx plus b form, it is easier to go and use our substitution method. Thank you.